Do you want me to tell you something that probably no one has dared to confess to you? You're stuck. Yes, you. Trapped in a prison you built yourself, brick by brick. Every decision you made based on what others might say. Every step you didn't take for fear of making a mistake. Every fake smile you used to hide the urge to scream. Those were walls you built. That feeling in your chest isn't always anxiety or stress. It's the weight of living a life designed to please others. An existence shaped for spectators who don't even value you, who don't even pay to watch you perform. And you know what's the hardest part? No one forced you to do it. You were the one who chose to chain yourself. You gave up your authenticity in exchange for temporary acceptance, for fleeting approval. You sold yourself for applause. And now that you dare to look inward, what's really left of you? What part is still truly yours, and what part was built by fear, by insecurity, by that insatiable desire to fit in? They made you believe that control was everything, that if you managed to keep everything under watch, everything would turn out perfect. But that idea is a trap, an illusion meant only to keep you busy, distracted, disconnected from what truly matters. And the more you try to control, the more you suffocate. The more you're consumed by silent anxiety, by a life constantly postponed, always waiting for a perfect moment that never comes. Have you ever asked yourself why you feel that emptiness that nothing seems to fill? Even when you supposedly have everything, it's because that everything wasn't chosen from your essence, but from the fear of not being enough for others. Your achievements, your relationships, your thoughts, they're all tainted by the need for external validation. And the more you chase validation, the further you drift from yourself, from that inner voice you once knew how to hear, but now only whispers, lost among all the noise. Michel de Montaigne, from his tower in the 16th century, had already understood. Detachment is not coldness, it's freedom. We are not imprisoned by external things, but by our obsession with controlling what cannot be controlled, by that sick desire to please, to be accepted, to avoid any criticism. But what if I told you that the detachment you fear so much is precisely the key to your true freedom? What would happen if you let go of that rope you're holding so tightly? That rope you believe keeps you safe, but is actually choking you. Because here's the paradox. The more you try to control, the less control you have. The more you try to please, the more you lose yourself. And the more you resist change, the more it hurts when it arrives. The world doesn't operate under your control. It never has. Accepting that doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise. Life, in all its chaos and unpredictability, asks just one thing of you: to let go. Let go of the need to please. Let go of the fear of failure. Let go of the mask that shields you from others' judgment, but also keeps you away from who you truly are. Who would you be if you stopped living in fear of others' opinions? What would you do if you knew no one would ever judge you again? That version of yourself you imagine, free, unbound, that's your essence. That's you, without filters or chains. But there's something even deeper. You're afraid to let go because you don't know who you are without all of it. You've spent so long adapting that you're scared to discover there's nothing left behind it all. But here lies the most powerful truth. Only by letting go of what you are not can you begin to discover who you truly are. The freedom you're searching for isn't somewhere far away. It's right here, behind the fear that's paralyzing you right now. It's not in books or motivational quotes or magic formulas. It's in your decision. In the courage to look at your life and say, I will no longer live to please anyone. I will no longer hide from myself. So tell me, are you ready to let go? Or will you keep clinging to control, knowing that each day like this takes you further away from yourself? This is not the end. It's just the beginning. A path that might scare you, but one you urgently need to walk. The choice is in your hands. Will you stay inside a comfortable yet empty cage, Or will you dare to leap into the unknown and finally feel truly alive? Welcome to a new paradigm, detachment, an invitation to reconnect with yourself and question everything you thought you knew about your identity. This journey is not easy, and yes, it can be unsettling, but there's something far more terrifying than walking toward your true freedom. Staying exactly where you are right now. We've been taught that achieving goals is the key to success. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself if those goals were truly yours? You've spent years climbing structures built by others, never pausing to ask if you even wanted to reach the top. And now that you're there, what do you see? The life you once imagined? Or just someone else's projection in which you've completely lost yourself? We obsess over the idea of success as if it were a universal prize. But what does it really mean to be successful? And more importantly, according to whom? Maybe you've checked all the boxes, the right degree, the stable job, the proper relationships. And yet, there's a lingering emptiness that just won't go away. A subtle, constant restlessness that wakes up with you every morning. That's your inner voice. The authentic part of you that has been ignored for far too long. Montaigne, in his voluntary retreat far from the noise of the world, discovered an uncomfortable truth. Real success isn't measured by material things or external approval. True success is living in harmony with your nature, with who you truly are. But to do that, you must look beneath all your masks, beyond the roles you've been playing. You've acted for so long, you've forgotten what it feels like to be real. Your mind knows it. No matter how much you try to hide it, there's always a part of you fighting to come out, rejecting the falsehood, begging to be heard, want a truth that's uncomfortable but freeing. As long as you keep playing roles, you will never find peace. The exhaustion, the anxiety, the sense of disconnection, they're the natural result of living a life that isn't yours. And here's where it gets even harder. Because Montaigne understood something most don't. People would rather stay in the comfort of the known, even when it deeply unsettles them, than face the uncertainty of truly being themselves. They prefer a lukewarm existence, settling for crumbs of happiness, rather than risking everything to find themselves. So what about you? Which side are you on? Are you one of those who dares to cross the threshold, or one of those who stays numb in the routine? Because yes, routine is a powerful anesthetic. It keeps you busy, distracted, and trapped. But that false sense of security comes at a very high cost, the loss of your inner freedom. And freedom isn't doing whatever you want without consequences. Freedom is having the courage to stay true to yourself, even if that means disappointing expectations, breaking molds, and enduring the discomfort of not fitting in. Maybe right now you're thinking, what if I lose everything by being authentic? But here's the paradox. If you have to fake it to keep something, then it was never truly yours. Real relationships, soulful projects, meaningful accomplishments, they all survive your authenticity. In fact, only by being your true self can you discover what's worth keeping and what was just taking up space. You have far less to lose than you think, and so much more to gain than you imagine. But to receive that, you must first jump into the unknown, into an imperfect life. Yes, but a real one. Montaigne left us with a powerful lesson. Detachment is not giving up what you love. It's loving it without needing it to define you. It's building from freedom, not from fear. Because everything you cling to out of fear of losing eventually owns you. And here lies the message that almost no one dares to say. You live in fear of losing what you have because you've never allowed yourself to discover who you are without it. People cling desperately to relationships, jobs, and prefab identities. And in doing so, they forget that real life begins when you stop holding on to what no longer represents you. So tell me, what will you do now? Will you keep living on autopilot, afraid to discover who you are? Or will you finally find the courage to let go of the known and leap into that terrifying uncertainty where something far more valuable might be waiting to be found. Who are you really, beyond control, approval, and fear? This is the path Montaigne walked from his silent tower, and it's the same path now laid out before you. Will you dare to walk it, or will you settle for remaining a spectator of your own existence? Only you hold the answer. Following that thread, we can explore how the act of storytelling is not only a vehicle for transmitting knowledge or emotion, but also a profound mirror of our search for identity. When we tell stories, consciously or unconsciously, we place ourselves in front of a reflection of who we are or who we long to be. Narrative then becomes a powerful tool for self-exploration, where every character or situation projects our deepest desires or our most hidden fears. We often forget that fiction is also a way of rehearsing life, a kind of emotional simulator where we can live multiple destinies without taking real risks. That's why, in times of uncertainty or collective crisis, like the ones we are living through, stories gain even more relevance. They offer both refuge and catharsis. But beyond comfort, they also allow for a kind of boldness we rarely show in our daily reality, inviting us to break imaginary boundaries and explore radically different perspectives. And here comes a fascinating point. How much do the stories we tell ourselves influence our daily decisions? Perhaps the narrative we cultivate internally determines how we interpret the external world, filtering our experiences and shaping, invisibly but constantly, the course of our lives. Thus, the power of storytelling is not just social or cultural, but deeply personal, capable of transforming our present and future through the words we choose to tell ourselves who we are. This leads us to an even more provocative question. What if changing the story we tell ourselves is a way to rewrite our destiny? It's not an exaggeration to think that many people live trapped in inherited narratives that don't fully belong to them. Stories of failure, limitations, imposed roles that they nonetheless accept as unchangeable truths. In this sense, reclaiming one's own story can be a profoundly revolutionary act, rewriting ourselves not only as victims, but as protagonists with agency, capable of giving new meaning to the past and projecting different futures. Moreover, there's an intriguing phenomenon. The stories we tell ourselves don't just affect how we act, they also affect how others perceive us. A well-crafted narrative about who we believe we are can become a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, influencing our relationships, our opportunities, and the way the world responds to us. As if our inner narrative were a silent script we all unknowingly help bring to life. In this way, consciously constructing our personal story becomes not only a matter of introspection, but also a life strategy. On the other hand, we must consider the role of contradiction within our personal narrative. We are not linear beings, nor should our stories be. Accepting that a rich narrative includes dark corners, plot twists, contradictions, and ambiguities is to embrace the full spectrum of being human. In fact, the best stories aren't the ones where everything fits perfectly, but those that leave open questions, moments of discomfort, and glimpses of truth within the confusion. It is in that imperfection that the beauty of honesty, and therefore of life itself, resides. And maybe the most poetic thing about all this is that we never stop rewriting ourselves. Every conversation, every encounter, even every silence adds a new page. Every decision, no matter how small, is sculpting a new version of our story. And if you've made it this far, maybe you've already realized something powerful. We are not secondary characters in a story written by others. We are authors in the midst of the creative process. And what's fascinating is that there are no final drafts. Each day can be a new page, yes, but also a page that rewrites the ones that came before. What seemed like a sad chapter yesterday might now be read as the turning point before the rebirth. And that, perhaps, is the great alchemy of human storytelling, to turn scars into symbols, mistakes into plot twists, and silences into suspense. But watch out, here comes the final twist. What if the true art of living is not knowing exactly what story we're telling? Because there's beauty in uncertainty too. In not being sure if you're in a comedy, a tragedy, or an epic, there's an almost magical freedom. Sometimes, the most powerful stories aren't the ones that end with a big round of applause, but the ones that leave you wanting to keep writing, because it's not over yet. And now, we've reached the end. Though you already know, endings are just beginnings in disguise. If any of this resonated with you, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next chapter. And drop this phrase in the comments: I rewrite my story. That way, I'll know you made it all the way here, and that you're part of this community of conscious, curious, and brave storytellers. See you in the next episode.